Egypt strongly rejects false claims of relocating Gazas to Sinai for reconstruction. US envoy says that Israel demands Hamas disarm as part of future Gaza settlements. And Israel prepares for a ground offensive, eyeing complete Gaza control and a possible deal. It's exactly 10 a.m. Car local time and you're watching Qnews. We begin today's bulletin with the latest developments in Gaza. Egypt's State Information Service has firmly rejected false claims that Egypt plans to temporarily relocate 500,000 Gaza residents to northern Sinai for reconstruction. Egypt's State Information Service also emphasized that such allegations were entirely untrue and contradict Egypt's strong stance against the displacement of Palestinians. This unwavering stance forms the core of reconstruction plan Egypt presented at the recent Emergency Arab Summit in Cairo. U.S. Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff has stated that Israel demands Hamas disarm as part of any future settlement, allowing Hamas a brief transitional presence in Gaza. He asserted that Hamas seeks to retain control, which Israel deems unacceptable. Witkoff noted ongoing negotiations to halt Israeli airstrikes, emphasizing that dialogue remains key to reaching a resolution. Hamas has reaffirmed its right to resist Israeli occupation, rejecting the U.S. National Security Advisor's remarks, equating victim and aggressor. It condemned Washington's bias and dismissed claims that Israeli self-defense was justified, labeling it occupying force. Hamas accused Israel of rejecting ceasefire deals for political gain and blamed ongoing violence on its refusal to uphold agreements. The statement denounced U.S. complicity in Gaza's suffering through blockade and military support. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has announced plans to seize more areas in Gaza, expel Palestinians and expand buffer zones, citing security concerns. He threatened further territorial occupation and intensified military actions until all Israeli detainees were released. Katz stated that Israel would apply military and civil pressure, including forcing Gazans southward and promoting a voluntary migration plan previously suggested by U.S. President Donald Trump.
אין בכוונתם לאכוף אותם על מנהיגי מדינת ישראל. אף כוח שבעולם לא ימנע מאיתנו.
Israel is preparing for a large-scale ground offensive under Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir's plan, deploying additional forces including reservists. Israeli media reports suggested the government aims to impose military rule over Gaza. While Israel eyes Hamas' total defeat, it also leaves room to a partial detainee deal. Israeli media also reports that Israel is laying the groundwork for full Gaza control, with ceasefire talks uncertain and U.S. pressure on Netanyahu lacking. Israeli occupation forces have intensified their operations in Tulkarm, ordering more evacuations in the northern neighborhood. Residents of multiple buildings were given under 2 hours to evacuate their homes, as the military planned to turn them into closed outposts. Volunteers from the Palestinian Red Crescent Society and local committee quickly arrived to assist families in evacuating and retrieving their belongings before the deadline imposed by the Israeli forces. In a joint statement, the governments of Germany, France and the United Kingdom have urged an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and called on Israel to allow humanitarian aid access. The foreign ministers demanded Israel restore essential services and medical evacuations per international law. They stressed that only a ceasefire negotiations could ensure lasting peace. The statement also urged Hamas to release Israeli detainees, condemning the ongoing violence. France has strongly condemned the March 19th attack on a UN building in Gaza, which killed one UNOPS employee and injured several others. Offering condolences to the victims' family and the UN, France called for a thorough investigation to identify the responsible parties. The country emphasized the need to protect humanitarian personnel in line with international humanitarian law, condemning the work of UN programs like UNRWA in Gaza and globally. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned that the continuous expansion of Israeli settlements was significantly altering both the landscape and demographic makeup of Palestinian territories. He emphasized that Palestinians were increasingly confined to shrinking, disconnected areas, jeopardizing the possibility of a contagious, viable Palestinian state. Guterres reiterated that Israeli settlements were illegal under international law and raised concerns about human rights violations linked to demolitions and forced displacements.
The United Nations and humanitarian partners are working to ensure safe passage from besieged areas.
UNRWA repeated that the situation in Gaza is deteriorating rapidly due to severe reductions in aid. Senior Deputy Director of UNRWA Affairs in Gaza, Sam Rose, stated that progress made during the 6-week ceasefire has been undone. Without a ceasefire, he warned of massive casualties, infrastructure destruction, the spread of disease, and severe psychological trauma for Gaza's 2 million civilians, including 1 million children. He added that over 600 people have been killed in recent bombardments, with no aid entering Gaza since early March. That comes as the ongoing displacement evacuation orders are further exacerbating the crisis.
Against the backdrop of no supplies having entered Gaza since the beginning of March, so for about 19 days. So this is the longest period since the start of...
Moving on to Beirut, where Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has warned that Israel would respond to the launch of live rockets from Lebanon, marking the first such attack in 3 months. The Israeli Occupation Army radio reported that the incident. Katz emphasized Israel's firm commitment to the security of its northern communities, holding the Lebanese government fully responsible for any rockets fired from its territory. He instructed the Israeli army to respond accordingly. Moving on to Syria, where the U.S. State Department has called for the establishment of an inclusive, civilian-led government in Syria. Spokesperson Tammy Bruce stated that the U.S. is closely monitoring the actions of Syrian leaders while determining its future policy. She emphasized ongoing U.S. support for a government that includes all factions and is led by civilians, ensuring effective national institutions and representation. Additionally, the department mentioned potential exemption that U.S. administration may announce soon regarding Syria.
As recent deadly violence on the coast demonstrated, long-term stability and prosperity for the people of Syria requires a government that protects all Syrians.
We now move on to the latest developments in the Russian-Ukrainian war. Russia has announced that it had shot down a Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter jet and more than 1,100 drones as tensions continue to escalate on multiple fronts. According to the Russian military defense ministry, the military carried out 13 coordinated precision strikes on the past week, targeting Ukrainian military airfields, ammunition depots, drone storage and training bases, and assembly workshops. The ministry also claimed continued military gains in Ukraine Kursk Oblast, with over 500 of the downed drones intercepted inside the designated zone of the so-called special military operation. Meanwhile, Ukraine reported it had repelled several Russian attacks as both sides continue to release conflicting battlefield assessments. Russia and Ukraine exchanged blame over the destruction of Sudza gas monitoring station in Russian western Kursk region. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed Ukrainian forces deliberately blew up the facility while retreating from the area, while Ukraine's general staff countered, saying the station was shelled by Russian forces. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov dismissed Ukraine's claims as completely absurd, accusing Kyiv of violating ceasefire commitments and attacking energy infrastructure in Russia's Krasnodar and Kursk region. Peskov insisted that Russian forces remain committed to their pledge not to strike Ukraine energy facilities. The state, located just a few hundred meters from the Ukrainian border, had reportedly been under Ukraine control since August 2024. Russian forces say they have now regained control of the area. Russian attacks have killed at least 5 people in Ukraine, including 2 in the southeastern city of Zaporizhia, according to Ukrainian officials. Zaporizhia regional governor Ivan Fedorov reported that 9 others were injured in the strikes, which he said hit the city more than 10 times overnight. Video released by Ukraine's state emergency service showed rescue crews working through rubble with damaged apartment blocks and shattered windows. While the footage could not be independently verified, the reported attacks also claimed lives in Ukraine's northern and eastern regions. The strikes are part of broader escalation in Russian military activity across several fronts. In Beijing, China Media Group, the CMG, has held a high-level dialogue in Doha, bringing together nearly 100 guests and media representatives to explore new opportunities for China-Qatar cooperation. The event, part of CMG's China in Springtime, sharing opportunities with the world, global dialogue series focused on how China's continued development and opening up can benefit Qatar and strengthen bilateral ties. Chinese representatives reiterated China's commitment to global development and high-level openness, highlighting the potential offered by the country's modernization drive. Moving on to Turkey, where protests have escalated following the detention of Istanbul mayor and marking the country's largest wave of civil disobedience in over a decade. Tensions rose in cities including Izmir and Ankara, where riot police clashed with demonstrators and used water cannons to disperse crowds. Since Wednesday, tens of thousands of people have taken to the streets in mostly peaceful protests. A key rival to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was detained and charged earlier this week, which is, of course, the mayor of Ankara of Istanbul. And the opposition Republic Party CHP has condemned the arrest as politically motivated and called on supporters to continue demonstrating peacefully. The final stretch of a delivery, known in the logistics industry as the last mile, is often one of the most time and labor-intensive tasks, but a Swiss robotics company may have found a solution. Swiss robotics company has unveiled Milo, an autonomous delivery robot, at NVIDIA's developer conference in San Jose, California. Designed to handle the final stretch of deliveries, Milo can move from a truck to a customer doorstep, navigating obstacles using AI. It features legs to hop down from vehicles, wheels for sidewalk travel, and a robotic arm to hand over packages directly. Already in operation in Switzerland, RIVR is now planning to expand to the United States cities, including San Francisco and Boston. NVIDIA CEO has unveiled the company's latest breakthroughs in artificial intelligence at its annual developer conference, GTC 2025. Among the highlights, NVIDIA unveiled that Ishaq Goth N1, the world's first open human-node robot foundation model, along with new stimulation tools to speed up robotic development. It also introduced Newton as open-source physics engine for robotics, built with Google DeepMind and Disney Research to boost robot learning. NVIDIA also announced a partnership with General Motors to use its artificial intelligence chips and software for autonomous vehicle development and smarter factory operations, including advanced driver assistance systems.
That's good. All right, Stan.
Now we move on to Salma Marwan in the newsroom.
Thank you, Rana. And now we move to the economic news, where we provide you with the latest insights and developments around the world. U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that Canada should be an American state. Trump emphasized the need for credible journalists and claimed that tens of billions would return to the U.S. through tariffs. He criticized Canada for taking advantage of the United States in trade deals and mentioned that many countries had requested tariff exemptions, promising flexibility. He further argued that Canada's support cost the U.S. $200 billion annually and should become a U.S. state.
To a businessman who is helping us so much. He's a great patron.
U.S. President Donald Trump has awarded Boeing the contract to build the U.S. Air Force's most advanced fighter jet, the F-47, replacing Lockheed Martin's F-22 Raptor. This victory boosted Boeing's fortunes, with shares rising 5%, while Lockheed Martin's shares fell 7%. The new jet, designed to work with drones, is a major win for Boeing's St. Louis fighter production business. Trump hinted at possible foreign sales, further enhancing the contract's significance.
And so that's a problem. But they have a tremendous surplus against the United States, and we don't want that.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced that Canada plans to eliminate internal trade barriers by July 1st, aiming for free trade across the country. This move, which could offset the impact of potential U.S. tariffs, involves harmonizing regulations, mutual recognition of provincial rules, and creating national standards. Carney cited research showing that removing these barriers could lower trade costs by up to 15% and boost Canada's economy by 4% to 8%.
Trade and energy corridor strategy. For transportation, for energy.
And now we go back to Rana in our studio.
Thank you very much, Salma. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin for today. And for now, here's what we have been covering. Egypt strongly rejects false claims of relocating Gazans to Sinai for reconstruction. U.S. envoy says that Israel demands Hamas disarm as part of future Gaza settlement. And Israel prepares for a ground offensive, eyeing complete Gaza control and a possible deal. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour. Don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Qnews Egypt. And to stay informed, thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for more updates on Qnews.